the midst of a huge transformation where our peers, communities, and workplaces are all really melding into one. Welcome to Reimagining Company Culture. My name is Christina Giordano. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I'm the Community and Partnerships Manager here at AllVoices. I'm excited to welcome our next guest onto the show, Erika Lance. She is the CHRO at KnowBe4. Erika, thank you for being here. If you want to share a little bit about yourself, including your pronouns, and when you were younger, do you remember how you answered the question, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. So my pronouns are she, her, hers. I have been in the HR space for a little over 25 years. I managed to sort of fall into that. When I was 22, I put on my resume that I helped do recruiting when I was working an administrative job, and somebody read that and said, "Oh, you know how to do HR?" And I was like, yep, I do. And sort of decided to go that path on it, not formal. When I was a kid, I wanted to be an actress, actually, and I did that for quite a little bit when I was younger. And then I ended up having two absolutely beautiful, wonderful kids. And apparently you're not supposed to bring babies on sets and to plays with you. It's weird. Unless you're an A actor, they don't like to do that. So also, I pretty much wanted to be a Jedi Knight. I saw Star Wars when I was 3 years old at the Chinese Man Theater in LA. And from that moment on, I figured I should have a lightsaber.
Well, there you go. I think those are some great answers. I did not know you had a career as an actress. I think that's awesome. So if you fast forward to now, you're the CHRO at KnowBe4. How do you think your personal journey has really led you up until this point?
Well, I think, my personal journey started with that sort of, maybe not telling 100% the truth on my HR experience, but I'm very proud of the fact that I learn really quickly. I believe when you take on any experience, it doesn't matter what the experience is, you should become an expert on that experience. I think that's really, really vital. And when you do that, what ends up happening is you can learn and you can grow. So you don't have to go a traditional route to become something bigger than you are. And I always believe that in extreme ownership and taking the next step. And that's allowed me to continue to climb up from a very small company doing HR to now a large public global company being the CHRO. So that's how it worked for me.
Absolutely. I think that's definitely important to remember. And I appreciate you being transparent about your journey and jumping into the space as well. And now you have a lot of experience in the world of HR and people. And one of the things that you kind of mentioned as in our kind of pre-discussion was around radical transparency. What does that really mean to you?
What that means to me is that you have to be totally honest when it's good, bad, or ugly around you. And I think a lot of times managers, executives, people don't realize that when a person doesn't have enough information, they create a vacuum. And they'll put information in that vacuum that they've made up completely, or somebody's got a rumor or something happens, where if you're very honest with people about what's happening, where even the executive strata or somebody makes mistakes, I'm the first person, if I've made a mistake, to go, yep, I totally messed that up. And this is what I'm going to do to fix it. That ownership of saying that and doing that with people. And also, instead of like accumulating bad marks against somebody, if something happens, call it out right when it happens and explain and try to find out why it's happening, so that a person doesn't have to wonder where they're at, or if they did something, or somebody mad at them. If you're really radically honest with people and transparent all the time, everyone always knows where they're at, and then can function and add to whatever you're doing even better.
Absolutely. I think radical transparency and practicing that from a leadership perspective is really important to modeling and setting the tone for the team. Like you mentioned, owning up to mistakes especially is important. Can you share kind of another example of what radical transparency looks like at KnowBe4, and any examples?
Well, one of the things that our CEO does, which I absolutely think is brilliant, is he has a morning meeting every morning with all employees. And he tells them what's going on, what is the latest news, what's happening, If things are great, the great things are not so great, the not so great things. He's very good about doing that. And then he has each area, like HR is always on there, technology, but it's right at the moment, communication live. And it used to be live and in person, obviously, before Corona hit, and that changed our world. But and so he still does this, and people can have feedbacks, and he has asked me anythings all the time, and the executives have asked me anythings, and it just really puts it in a place where it's not somebody in some ivory tower dictating things without a clear understanding of why things are coming the way they're coming.
Yeah, it sounds like the leadership team is accessible and he's practicing effective communication, which is really important too, and being open and radically transparent with the team. I know specifically for the HR team, since you've been at KnowBe4, you've grown the team from, I believe, 10 team members to over 50 across 11 different countries and 6 continents.
Yes.
You really prioritize the scaling of your team and the different functions.
Well, I'm very lucky. We're actually up to like 63 now, believe it or not. It's amazing. I think one of the things you have to do as a leader in any area is you have to know how to go in and look and see what is actually set up to scale. If you like, one big question we always ask at KnowBe4 is it scalable? When you set up a process or you set up a way to do something, is it something that will actually grow? And then looking at where pressure points are occurring and having open communication with your team to go, okay, this process now needs to go into place. Because no matter the size of a company, there are different processes that need to go in from an HR perspective among every other area of the organization. But you have to go, okay, what is the next thing? Well, if you're recruiting a certain amount of people, you put metrics to it and go, how many people can your recruiters on average recruit? Well, say it's 2 per person. Well, if you need to recruit 20 people and you have 3 recruiters, the math just simply doesn't work. So that's how I generally approach it, is I go, okay, what is the next step? What is the next goal we want? And what is the correct estimation of effort, the correct amount of humans, the correct amount of software, the correct amount of whatever it is to be able to achieve that goal? And then set out to achieve that goal with the people necessary to make that happen. And I think that's how you grow. And you look at an office and go, what is the first person you need to put in an office? Good. What is the second person you need in it? How many humans in the office does that second person come into play? Good. What is the third person? And it's organizing for success and organizing so it scales. And so that you don't have an area that has something break.
Right.
Things are going to break in an area, but you try to plan to not have that many things break. And then when it does, you assess, how did you miss that happening? What can you do differently the next time you have to scale that area so that doesn't happen?
Absolutely. A learning opportunity, figuring out what your goals are, backing into what resources you need to empower your team and make sure that everybody is resourced effectively, I think is really important. And also looking at the learning opportunities and seeing how you can grow in the future. I think a really big scalable process that a lot of companies have really thought about is virtual onboarding, especially as teams continue to grow throughout these past, I can't believe it's 2 years now. And KnowBe4 is starting a phased approach to going into the office, but you're still doing virtual hiring and onboarding. How do you and your team really create inclusive onboarding experiences for team members joining during this time?
Well, we're really fortunate because when I created the onboarding team, I created it that there are people dedicated to care for the new people coming on board. And that's true also in our training area, and the managers and everybody are included. So one of the things we used to do before it went virtual was we had a scavenger hunt where they went around and actually met with me, met with our CEO, met with our chief revenue officer, and they got little funny tidbits from each of us, but we also injected a nugget of advice. So it was a nugget of advice and learn something cool about the people you're working with. We changed that to be a virtual scavenger hunt. And they at the end of their scavenger hunt, they ended up being able to go get coffee with the onboarding team. So we do a virtual coffee, and we make sure they have a coffee gift card, and they're able to do a virtual coffee, tea, whatever it is they want to drink, non-alcoholic, with the team. But also, like, we had a lunch that they went to on the Wednesday of their first week. we still make sure they have that virtual lunch, and all of the things that were successful for in person and caring about them, our onboarding team still does. And we grew our onboarding team to accommodate the fact that they had to be global and virtual. So we kept in all of those things that were great, and making sure their managers had Zoom calls with them when they used to meet in person with their managers. I think the biggest thing when somebody is new is we all forget what it's like to be the new person when you come into a company or any group or any social, or when we went to school for the first time.
Okay.
Like, it was scary. It was very scary, and you don't know people and you don't know all the rules. So we make sure every team that comes in contact with the new people coming on board really does it with that vision in mind, that here's somebody who's brand new, who's could be very nervous about everything that's happening, and how do you help them to feel safe and secure and a part of the team instantly. And like, we introduce them on day 2 of them being there to the entire team and welcome them, and they're welcomed by the CEO. And it's just little things that as you do that, and then you have your onboarding team continue to keep track of those employees through their journey into past their 90 days. So they never feel like they were cared for and then, dumped into the deep blue waters, like, we always make sure they feel that care all the way through, and that they're part of the team from day one.
Yeah, it's definitely a tangible feeling when you think that people are making the effort to make sure that you are included, that you instantly feel like you're part of the group as well. Being the new kid is never fun, knowing what to expect and anticipating that as well. It sounds like there is some innovation happening with virtual onboarding and making sure the scavenger hunt is still in place to connect with team members. Can you tell us about another time over the past 2 years where KnowBe4 has innovated in a process, strategy, or innovation?
Well, we actually started something very incredibly cool, which is called Jumpstart.
Okay.
So we actually have 3, I call them START programs, but this is the first one we did. And what we did is opened the opportunity for people of a diverse background who maybe graduated high school or got their GED, but didn't ever have a chance to actually be an employee somewhere, come in and start from their first day of employment as one of our tech supports. So we designed a program completely around this. And we had our first group, where they call them jump starters, come in so that they have a jump start to their career. And part of that was also making sure that they have access to get a further education. So if they stay with KnowBe4 and stay with the team, they're going to get an opportunity to get a 2-year degree on KnowBe4, along with our tuition reimbursement. If they decide they want to continue past that, they have that opportunity. But we designed this course to also have a lot of life skills. And hi, you now have a job for the first time. What does that mean? Because a lot of people, their first jobs, they're not usually successful at the first jobs for a long period of time. There's a mess up. They don't like it. They leave. They don't know how to adjust. They get terminated. Like, there's all sorts of weird things that can generally happen the first time you're employed. And we did that, including having some classes around financial things. How do you do budgets and stuff like that? How do you have a career path? What are some basics you need? And we have a manager that's amazing with them, that sat with them the whole time, and they're learning how to be tech support people for KnowBe4, but they can grow their career anywhere else that they want to. It's just a door that doesn't get open, because the old adage that you have to have experience to get the job, but you can't get the experience because you can't get the job.
Yes.
So growing a community, and we're actually expanding that this year into 2 other programs. One is called Restart, which is for people who've been in a career. Because one of the things that happened when we started Jumpstart was we had a gentleman who was a trucker, and he's been a trucker for 30 years, but he's only been a trucker for 30 years and he'd like to get into another field. But you look at his resume and you go, but you're a trucker. Who's going to hire him into a tech type field because he's been a trucker? So we're doing a restart. So giving people the opportunity to change careers that maybe didn't have a career that aligns with the type of jobs we have available, but absolutely has the core things that we need to do that. And then we're doing a Project New Start, which is for people coming out of the military, because people coming out in the military can do great and you can get a GI Bill, but somebody who has been, I don't know, munitions the entire time they've been in the military, that is not a job that usually translates into a real job in corporate America. There are some fun jobs you could have, but that's not something that they can take their training and go, oh, I'm going to go into the real world from having been in munitions for the last 4 years. So we're
Absolutely.
excited, and those are innovations, I think, is something we need to allow people to have the opportunity to bridge that gap between being able to be an employee at a company or corporation with the skill set necessary when there's not a lot of open doors to do that.
Yeah, and I think those are really good examples of programs that recognize that people coming into corporate America who are interested in working at KnowBe4 as well are coming in at different points of their lives and have different journeys too. So Jumpstart and making sure that you are recognizing the different talent pools that are coming in and upskilling them is really important. And also professional development, internal mobility, growth is really important too. If people have feedback that are currently at KnowBe4 or they want to provide any ideas, I want to ask around how you see kind of this employee feedback management as an important tool to build this culture of listening at KnowBe4, and how do you see that manifesting at the organization as well, since you're a global company?
We have a no door policy, and this is really important. We stress this a million times, is you can talk to any single one of us and reach out and have that. But part of our one-on-ones, and we have our managers do at least monthly one-on-ones with every single one of their employees, is the feedback loop. Is not only, let me tell you how you did as an employee, but tell me what can change, what we can do better. There, we have a suggestion box. We have different AMAs where people can bring up things. I have an entire area of my human resources department called employee relations that does constant surveys with the different areas throughout the organization. They're constantly moving around, also doing touch bases with the employees. We also have growth coaches and a career person. We call him Career Dave, but he's his area is dedicated to help with career paths. We have all these avenues for people to talk to. So one of those avenues, wherever they feel the safest, they can reach out and communicate about something. And the biggest difference that we do, which organizations have to do, and I cannot stress this enough, is listen and then take action on the feedback that you've gotten. It doesn't even have to be that you change something. It might be something you can't change, but communicating that, hi, I heard you. I heard what you wanted to be different. We can't make that change. Let me tell you why we can't make that change, even if it has to be an abridged answer, because maybe some of it's not for everyone to know. But if you don't at least acknowledge that you've heard it, but you can't do it, it just goes out into a void, and then employees don't think they're listened to at all on something. And they could have a brilliant idea, and you're never going to hear it. And the truth is, employees doing a job know way more about the job than you will ever know as an executive over the job, because they're in the trenches and they're making it happen. So yes, you can have ideas on how to improve, and you might have experience from having done it before, but if you're running a call center, when was the last time you were on the phone actually dealing with customers with the present technology and the present rules? You have to get in and hear from the people that are doing it and how they're perceiving their employment, and what we can do to do something different for them or just overall for their family. Plus, we also have employee relation groups. So we have 7 employee relation groups now for different groups of people. Like we have a parents one, we have one for the Hispanic community, we have LGBTQA, we have women in technology, veterans and active military. We have 7 groups, and they are made up of a committee of employees. Mm-hmm. And there's usually one human resource person that's there to listen, but we're not the committee members. And we have a diversity area dedicated, so they have a voice there too. So if something is concerning to that particular group of people, they have an exact clear path to bring that up and have changes made that need to be made, or communicate about how something is affecting them in a very positive way, so they're listened to and a difference is made. Because it's terrible to put any amount of groups together if you're not going to actually listen to what they say.
Absolutely. I think that two-way communication is really important, especially, if you can't make the change for whatever reason, you can still communicate that I listened, I heard you, and just, report back. So employees feel like they are seen and heard, and they're more likely to give that feedback again in the future. Ideas can come from anywhere. I know that I asked kind of specific questions around the strategy for KnowBe4, but I also want to ask you kind of a more vague question of what's taking up the most brain space in Erika's mind right now? What's the next problem or situation you're currently trying to solve?
I think I'm still in the situation of the coronavirus, honestly, if I had to say. I mean, we're constantly moving and growing, but the last 2 years have been unprecedented in the HR space. Like, so many rules change. And honestly, employees have changed how things are happening out in the world. Like, employees are like, and in a great way. I actually love this change. But first of all, tons of rules were broken that were standard rules that no, we can't do this thing. Well, actually, we just proved we could do this thing, right? But it's also given employees a chance to actually confront and do what is work-life balance to them. What are the things that are important to them? And adjust to be employees with that look. Because when you're in HR, you're trying to get people do work-life balance, you can only do that if they do that. They have to do something for work-life balance. Like, I can't make you have a work-life balance. I have to, and have things in place where you can, but you have to take it upon yourself. But I think a lot of employees are approaching like what is truly important to them differently. Also, with the being able to actually be remote, hello world, that was possible. It's opened up companies that maybe had never looked or branched out to other parts of the United States have branched out. So salaries are changing, jobs are changing, benefits are changing because we have a whole new world. So it's constantly keeping our finger on the pulse. Like, somebody brought up doing a comp analysis to me, and I was like, we can in a way, but it's very hard because the research data is not the current information. And when you're talking to people, you find what the current salaries are for a particular job. So you constantly have to pivot. And so that, is we've done a great job, I feel like, at KnowBe4 pivoting with things, but that's constantly top of mind. And are the rules changing? We're still waiting for the executive order for Biden to come out from OSHA on what the vaccines are going to mean, so that's going to change things again when that comes out. And will it be rebuffed, or how are they going to implement it in different states doing different things, in different countries doing different things? So there's a lot of excitement still around this topic, and still making sure all your employees are really cared for during this, because some of them hit some very difficult times. So you have to make sure they have what they need in order to get through that time, and that they know the company's there for them to make sure that that can happen.
Absolutely. Understanding that employees have a life inside and outside of work as well. And that work-life blend is really, really important. I want to ask too around your experience. So not necessarily at KnowBe4, so just out in the world. From your perspective, what are some common mistakes you've seen companies make in their HR strategy or their people strategy? Like a cautionary tale, maybe.
Oh, there are cautionary tales. I think the one thing that the number one thing I see that companies make the mistake of is when it comes to diversity planning or initiative planning, they are not making sure from the top of the organization down that this is something everybody's in agreement with and everybody's willing to put the time and money to make it happen. You can't have an HR person being the only person on the ground trying to make initiatives happen. It doesn't work like that. It has to be an agreement all the way from the board level of a company all the way down, that this is what we want to do, and we're willing to put resources to make that happen. The other thing I think that HR can sometimes do is get very, I call it ivory towered or siloed, like almost afraid of the employees, and make it so that when instead of in HR, which really should be a resource for employees and a resource for the organization, and somebody that helps continue to grow the organization and helps the employees continue to grow, they become this other thing behind a wall that if you get called into HR, that's it, it's over, it's the worst thing in the world, and there's no trust. Because if you establish the trust with employees that HR is not a bad place to be, then it affords you the opportunity that you'll hear more about situations that are happening and you can do something about those situations. But if you're the scary, Tyrannosaurus Rex walking through the office and everybody stops moving because they think you can't see them if they don't move, then that's not what should be happening. I make that joke because I've seen that where HR walks through and everybody freezes all of a sudden. I'm like, well, HR is a T-Rex. Obviously, they can't see you. So I think that that's important. And then the other thing is that, every person needs to understand what the rules are and what the guidelines are for a company and how to operate and how they can be successful in a company, and making sure you train your managers to be managers. I could not stress this enough. Most companies assume somebody's good at a job, therefore they can be the manager of the job. Managers are not HR trained. They don't have tools. You can take leadership courses, but being a leader is very different than being a manager. A manager has to know the empathy skills and the on the ground skills and the core things to handle employees, and also how to help them succeed and how to help employees grow. And companies do not spend enough time training their managers for success. And it's been shown on 80 million different things. People work for their managers. They don't work for the company. They work for the manager. So if you put the effort into training your managers to be awesome, then you're going to have employees that love and want to stay and want to do everything they can to forward your goals.
Absolutely. I 100% believe that people managers are really strong culture conduits, and they're the ones who you talk to on a more regular basis than executives or, other team members as well, because you're working so closely with them too. And just because you are a fantastic individual contributor doesn't mean the automatic next step is, okay, you're going to manage a team of 10 now, or you can manage this team. You have to be effectively resourced and actually want to do it too.
Exactly.
The next question I want to ask is something that we talked about a little bit at the beginning of our discussion, which is, when was your last kind of learning moment or aha moment?
I actually had an aha moment this last week, and I learn constantly. I'm a huge believer in continuing to, knowledge is power. So my, aha moments have come, I feel like furiously all the time in my direction. And the thing for me on those moments is, we have these moments in time and constantly learning and reading books and trying to figure out all of the things that will continue to make us better. And I did the national diversity training for executives, and I was their pilot program. I got to do that this recently. And it gave me probably about 30 aha moments throughout the thing, because you get to hear from passionate leaders in the space. And although I love what we're doing, and I think our diversity initiatives are amazing and great, but I never think I'm the smartest person in the room. Mm-hmm. The moment I think I'm the smartest person in the room, I feel like I'm doomed. So during that training, I learned so many cool things to bring forward. And, one of the things I thought was great is there's a lot of conversation around making sure job descriptions, for instance, and employment ads do not remove people's ability to apply for them, right? And it doesn't matter who the person is, but backgrounds, there's all these studies on who will apply for what. But this is one little nugget, right, was we tend to put things like 3 to 5 years experience. I mean, we've all heard 3 to 5 years experience. We've done this for years, right? Why is it 3 to 5? Wasn't it just minimum of 3 years experience? And they said that, and I was like, what? Like, this is so simple. But just that alone made me go back and actually relook at all the job descriptions and go, we've been doing things in this archaic way, right? It's archaic because we should have revamped this, right? But I don't know that any people just on their own would always go, oh, you know what, we should revamp this thing. Yeah. So that's an aha moment. I went and looked through all of the job description and went, is there anything that's in there that's not going, you absolutely have to have this, versus we would really like this beautiful unicorn to show up, that we would like to have these 40 other skill sets. And how do we communicate? This is our minimum requirements for appearing at this job. And this is what we'd like to have if we could have the most perfect, shining star employee ever. And that was a huge difference for me. So there's one aha moment. But really learning, people read books, knowledge is power, listen to podcasts, everything.
I love it. Yes, absolutely. I think that definitely makes sense. And when we talk about job descriptions and making sure that it's accessible and opportunities, I think that goes back to your earlier point as well about opening up opportunities across the United States and different locations as well. I think it really makes a difference. And there are changes and aha moments we can, implement tomorrow as well. Erika, is there anything that I either didn't ask that you want to share, or maybe 1 to 2 key takeaways that you hope people bring with them after they listen to our conversation here today?
The biggest thing is twofold. Never stop learning. Never stop getting yourself educated. Always become a better version of yourself through knowledge. And the other thing is, do not give up on the points that you believe are true and are passionate about, and your integrity. If you're at a place that doesn't want to change and doesn't want to move the needle and you can't get things, don't keep trying to push some gigantic boulder up a hill. Go
Yeah.
find a place that wants your initiatives and wants to do the things, because those places that don't want to are going to learn the hard way that they should have listened to you. But go to a place that allows you to have a positive impact and a positive change. You need to keep growing as a person. If you're listening to this podcast, literally always allow yourself to grow and never believe that you can't get past that moment.
A life learner, don't have that self-limiting belief. Nobody likes to push a boulder up a hill. So I think that's a good analogy to have there. Erika, thank you so much for being on Reimagining Company Culture.
Thank you for having me. This was wonderful.
Of course. And as a reminder for folks who are listening at AllVoices, we really believe in that employee feedback and think it's a requirement for the company to succeed. Have a good rest of your afternoon, everyone.
Bye.